All right, all right, all right. We are here with That's What She Said. And it is I don't even know what day it is, to be honest. It's been rough, guys. I think, is it Tuesday? Tuesday,
It's
April
a day.
30th. Yeah.
It's a day that ends in Y.
That ends in Y. That's right, girlfriend. So we're on episode 11 of That's What She Said. We're coming at you on a Tuesday night because, again, we're all really busy. Mandy's actually going to try to take a vacation, which, wow, God bless her. That's crazy.
Just a round of applause for Mandy.
Yeah. Go, sister, run.
Yes.
And then all of us I've been to travel to Oklahoma this weekend to help the Freedom Brigades and Charity Lunch, which I'm super excited about. Pastor Leon Benjamin's going to be there, and Dr. Mark Sherwood and Tom Renz is going to be speaking. So I'll be jumping on a plane soon too. So that's why we're coming at you on a Tuesday at 5 p.m. Also, I'm going to be real honest with you all. 9 p.m. is late for us. Okay. We're out here on the Pacific time. And I know that, Pacific time, Eastern, we're like, it's even later for East Coast, but all of us are like 9 p.m. We turn into pumpkins. So we're kind of happy to be here at 5.
You're still daylight in my house.
I know. I'm getting light through the light. Yeah, the sun through the window.
What is this sunlight?
Yeah, right.
It's amazing.
So tonight, because we've been fired up, I know I'll let Brooke talk about some of it. We've been fired up about what's going on at our school boards and in our education system. We're all out here in Nevada. Nevada is the worst in the nation. We are 50th, but when we worked on Joey Gilbert's campaign, we used to joke that we're like 51st because we're behind Puerto Rico. Okay, so we are the worst. Mandy and I homeschool. I homeschool because of COVID and because of it. She's been homeschooling longer, so we have different paths there, but we both are proud homeschool moms. I do an online curriculum with Liberty University, which I've been liking right now. Brooke's kids are in the public school system, but she is fiercely fighting at our school board, and she's very involved with politics here to help protect our kids. So God bless moms like you that are connected to the public school system, helping us fight there. And then Frankie teaches and works a lot with youth in her community through her church and in other arenas. And that's probably, I'm not going to speak for her, but that's her biggest heart thing she does. Her why is the kids, and she's been very involved with education in her community too. So we wanted to talk about our kids, why we fight for kids, and what education means for all of us, and what we're going through. So Brooke, you were fired up about this this week. Tell me a little bit. What are we seeing here in Washoe County, and what are we up against?
So you mentioned so many awesome things about what's not awesome, but the downfall of what's happening with public education. I have one in the district. I'm hoping that my other little guy, we did not get the lottery for him to go into the one public school that I would have been okay with for him to go into. So now it's kind of like we have to look at some other options. We'll see how that goes, because you guys all know that's with 50-50. It's been real rough. Okay. On top of that, people don't really look at the school boards. They say, oh, they don't matter, or they don't really put energy into them, and they do matter. And I think Frankie will be able to attest to this a little bit too, is that at the local level, they do matter. If you pay taxpayer money, even if you don't have children in school, those children are going to be exposed to your grandchildren at some point. Or if you do have children who you're homeschooling, Mandy and Andrea, your children are going to be exposed to the kids who were in traditional education. And yes, Nevada, oh my gosh, we're so lucky to claim last. Not really. So we have 4 school board seats that are up for re-election. One of them we want to retain because he's conservative and we want to keep him. We're pretty sure that we'll be able to do that. We have 3 that we would like to move on to other things that do not involve children, their sexuality, or public education. They can get their little pink slip and go stage left, because that's what they vote on. There are people that are currently on the board. They don't listen to anything that the parents say. We go down and say, well, we want this, and they do the exact opposite. So they've been reminded multiple times. They get paid by our taxpayer dollars. Their job is to serve the constituents. They don't care. They just do what they want. The other 3 people that the seats are up, that we have multiple people running, and I'm helping host. I'm moderating on Thursday for Red Move. In person, we're doing a school board debate. We've invited the incumbents. Of course, none of them have said they will come. And I think that speaks volumes. When you're an incumbent and you will not come and hold your ground and say why you voted on certain things the way you did, why you chose not to listen to constituents, those are big red flags. And I think what we've seen since COVID, there's been a lot of exposure of our eyes are opening to everything that's happening. And that's kind of what happened with me, with my oldest son. You guys do know part of the story. But at the end of the day, it boils down to they are indoctrinating the children. We have chronic absenteeism, drug use. We have the lowest graduation rates. We have the lowest enrollment rates because parents are taking their children out of public schools. And the districts they're in the background whining, going, oh, no, it's not our fault. We need more funding. No, you're not listening to what the taxpayers are telling you to do. And
yes.
Let
me hi Adam. Let me jump in on the funding part when it comes to Nevada, and this is another thing we talked about on our campaign a lot. We fund, I think, what like third? I mean, when it comes to money, we're up there. We have plenty of funding, okay? And we actually fund a lot more than Florida does, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we're still worse in the nation. The answer to our problems in our public schools is not to fund them more.
Correct. In fact, it was funny because before I got into this fight, it was about, I want to say 2 years ago, I was in like the shopping mall, walking around, and a person came up and they were trying to get signatures and they wanted to increase. We already went through a tax increase of like 7% to like 8.65 or something like that about 4 or 5 years ago. And they were trying to get signatures to do another increase. And I said, no, you focus on cleaning up the schools we have, because it was all about they wanted to raise tax money to build more schools. You have low enrollment rates. Why do you need to build more schools? Why don't you manage the ones that you have, correct those? But even their policies that they have in place for, I got a very disturbing phone call today, Andrea, from a buddy of ours about a situation at my son's previous middle school where there was actually like rape by another student to another student. And we're uncovering that nothing has been done. It's happened multiple times. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg. The stuff that I've dealt with is not nearly as bad as what some other parents have been going through. But at the end of the day, I'm also a prodigy of WCSD. And back when I graduated in 99, they had to reduce down our math scores because the seniors, we were all struggling. I took my math test five times before I actually passed. I had all these extra credits and all these extra things to graduate, and the only thing I needed was my proficiency score. And they actually ended up having to lower the scores to get a bunch of students to pass. So it's been and then we have him who wants to I've reminded them
he
that
needs a snack. I heard it.
I know.
He needs a
I'm
snack.
like, there's the pantry right there.
Yeah,
so it's very discouraging. I really don't want Adam in the public schools. And it's not just because the education component, it's the indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't trust what they're selling, because they're not producing productive little humans going into the world.
Well, and there's something to what you said too. So you have a 4-year-old and a 13-year-old, right?
5 and 14.
Okay, so I was off one. So 5 and 14. So there's also something to be said about ages, because with my kids with COVID, I made the call with the homeschool, but then I have been talking about getting them possibly enrolled in some of the private academies and things like that. Because again, public school scares me, because I've working in the political sphere, like what you're saying, is I've seen, and with some of the attorneys that help these parents fight this litigation, I've seen some of the scariest, most disgusting stories never want to hear about it. I mean, I knew about a lawsuit where a child was getting a disabled child was getting raped all the time on the public bus, the school buses. Okay. So I've heard of horrific things happening in our school district that would scare any parent to say, oh, no, I'm not touching public schools. So I don't want to do that. But I do, because of, I guess what I'm trying to get at is ages and family situations. I don't judge people. I don't judge people who have to do public school or private school or this, that, and the other thing. But for the first time, I think in a long time, in many generations, we're all sitting here like scratching our heads going, wait, what's happening in our public school? It is terrifying. And like what you're saying is you're looking at your 5-year-old going, okay, I don't want him to go through this. But, you have a 14-year-old. When you have kids that are a little bit older, they can speak for themselves and are going into being an adult. Yeah, you do want to prepare them for the world. Like I'm kind of, me personally, I homeschool and I love doing Christian based schooling, no matter what we're doing. So if I get my kids into a in-person learning school, I do want it to be, a faith-based school. But it's much different when you're looking at a 5-year-old than when you're looking at a 14-year-old. And that's where I'm at. When my kids are older, yeah, I'm thinking more of like prepare them, get them more, involved with in-person learning. But it is terrifying to have little ones that maybe can't verbalize what they're seeing or hearing and can't protect themselves. I mean, it literally is a battlefield, and I'm terrified to have little guys like Adam being 5. I could totally understand how that's different than a 14-year-old.
And Grant, I mean, I think that Grant is very well independent for his age, and he tells me everything. So there isn't a beat that gets missed with that one. Where Adam,
yeah, they're different personalities too. Yep,
totally different. Where Adam loves all you guys, hugs, kisses. He would be one of those kids that could be prone to an adult saying, "Oh, you're not a little boy, Adam. You're a little girl. Oh, you feel that way? You feel girly today? Oh, yeah, you're a girl." And there's no way on God's green earth, as his mother, I'm going to let anybody confuse him.
And how sad is it?
He's 5. Can you talk to A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Like where? Come on. Let's get back to actual stuff that children should be learning. The role of public education, there was a reason why there were the division of separation of church and state. It's education. But that, of course,
and education was always supposed to be more controlled by the family, and it was always more within the churches. That's how our country is built. I just have to say this real quick, then I'll yield to Frankie and Mandy. But my oldest is obsessed with comedy. We just saw Seinfeld last week, and he's obsessed with stand-up comedy. And we were watching some Norm Macdonald, and Norm Macdonald has this great skit where he talks about just how different times are. All of us talk about that all the time. But Norm Macdonald has this great thing about like what it was like to be a kid then. He's like, what was awesome when I was a kid? Like I'd find a cool stick, and then I'd go to my friend's house, and I'd be like, check out this stick, man. It's like really cool. And like, he's like, we'd just run around town with the stick. And he's like, and then when they forced us to go in school, we'd be really sad because we'd just be sitting in the classroom, looking out the window, looking at how cool that stick is, and like, it's just so funny to think of. It makes me sad because the world we're living in is just not as simple as it was when we were kids. Like, I'm in that 80s, right? I'm in my 40s, that 80s generation, that early 80s generation where it was like, no phones, no social media, no internet. We were playing outside until it got dark enough. The lights turned on and all the moms started screaming. All the doors in the neighborhood would kick open and the moms would be like, it's dinner time. That's just not happening anymore. And we are so scared of our kids being attacked because they're being viciously attacked in the public school system. And what we're up against is terrifying. We don't just have kids running around in the neighborhood and we don't feel secure with them just like playing with their stick and having a good old time with their bikes and their, and just playing outside like they used to. It's scary. The world is scary. Frankie, tell me about what you guys are going through in Vegas. Vegas has some of the worst stories, by the way, of what's going on down there.
Vegas is terrible. First off, I want to say if you look at the metrics of when the education system went from private to public, not a single metric has increased.
Well, early 60s is when they took God out of the school system too. Look that up. That was in New York. There was some legislation. They took God out of the school system and boom, look where we're at.
Precisely. So if you look at all of these metrics, you see that once the government stepped in, as with everything else, once the government stepped in, nothing got better. These kids actually were not getting better education. They weren't doing better. They weren't getting better jobs. They weren't excelling at anything. On the contrary, they were actually being held back because now they had these systems in place, right, where it's more about, we just need to get the kids to graduate. We just need to get them to the next grade. So as you already said, Brooke, you see that they start lowering the standards every single year. They start lowering the test standards. They start lowering the standards for passing to the next grade because they just want to get the kids to the next grade and push them out. It's all that they're concerned about is that turnover to get that next batch in and continue that profit coming in. Now, here in Nevada, and I'm sure it's similar in many other states, but the way that the funding works for the schools is based on the enrollment. So the more children are enrolled in a specific location, the more funding that specific school is going to get. Now, the problem with that is if you have zoning in your area there's going to be a certain amount of kids allotted to every single education or location. Now, the problem with that is that means you are guaranteed essentially customers to your physical school location because you are zoned for, let's say, for example, and it's like a high number, let's just say 10,000. If you have 10,000 kids in your area, you are guaranteed 10,000 customers, which is going to guarantee you funding from the government, and they're going to increase that funding every year for you to have all the resources and materials that you need. But then
Mhm.
you look at all of the results, none of those kids are doing better. The graduation rate is not increasing. On the contrary, they're decreasing. All the metrics are lower. So clearly, it's not more funding that you need, because the more funding these schools are actually receiving, the less education these kids are actually getting. There's no incentive for these schools to actually better their curriculum. That's all that they're concerned about, is turning over these kids and getting that funding. There is no incentive to do better, and they don't want these kids to do better. They're removing subjects from school. They're bringing in gender ideology and CRT. They're not focused on math. They're not
SEL.
focused on English. They're not focused on sciences. They're not actually preparing these kids to go into the workforce essentially and just be productive adults in the world. They're just preparing them to be these emotional creatures who need safe spaces, who will conform to anything, because that's how you create a loyal little soldier to the American government.
Would you, hey Frankie, you brought up an interesting point. Would you support it, like if in Nevada, if we pass some legislation that was like performance based, like a school gets, I don't know, I'm just throwing an idea out there, like maybe the top performing elementary, middle, high school, like because Clark County, where you're at, is the first largest district in our state, and then Washoe County, we're at, is the second. Would you support like some kind of initiative of, if those graduation numbers reflected that, like they got performance-based extra funding in any way? What do you think about that?
Oh, I absolutely think it should be performance based. If every school was required to have a set standard, and whatever schools received whatever metric we're going off of, highest test scores, highest all around, if
Yeah.
that system was in place, I feel like the schools would actually have to compete. But that's the thing also with school choice, right? They're really pushing to not allow school choice in Nevada, because that would take away their funding.
Okay.
That would require these schools to have to better their education and their
Well,
curriculum to increase those results. But as long as there is no school choice, they can do whatever they want. These kids could flunk out. They could not care less.
well, and
If
beyond,
this was based
Mhm.
on merit, it would change so much.
Yeah, we need full real competition, right? We need to like, when we talk about school choice versus vouchers, people need to understand the difference. To have like full real vouchers is what you really need. Every parent should be able to take that money
Yep.
and put it wherever they want
Yep.
to put it. Okay. That would create a completely
Yes.
free market and competition. Now, they've tried to do some of that before, but what's really interesting is how much we spend. And again, Paul White's going to yell at me because I don't have the number perfect in my
No,
head, but in the
I
nation, there's like $11,000 to $17,000 spent annually per student. Okay, per student. My two kids, if let's say it's 10, 20 grand, right? If it was a $20,000 voucher, I got $10,000 per student, and I could put it into either a private, an online program, or I do the public school. That's what we should have, is a full, no strings attached voucher system that the parents get to do whatever they want with, period. That's the way it should be.
And
it's
it's a really interesting point that you bring up, because I I want to make sure that we mention this. I know a lot of the reasons that many parents say, well, I can't afford to put my kids in private school because it's more expensive. When they actually break down the numbers, it is more money being spent per student in public school than it is for kids in private school. So if you had this voucher to choose the school that your kids went to, you would actually be saving money that you could reinvest into something else for your kids, because the amount used in private school where kids are getting a better education is actually costing less per student when everything is broken down.
It
And
says
it
so.
all comes down to money. The public
absolutely.
education system does
And
not
the
want to give up
teachers
the
aren't getting it.
funds.
Now think about this too. I just said $11,000 to $17,000 for your state. Look it up. And Brooke, you have it right there. What is it for Nevada?
It says they spend $10,061 per student, and the annual revenue is $794 million. By the way, they're at a deficit of they have a deficit that they can't meet right now because they have the lowest enrollment they've had in a decade. By the way, the lowest enrollment.
Good, good.
And they spend $5.5 million on instruction.
Okay, so here we go. We've got
11,000 million revenue and 5.5 million on instruction.
11,000 per student though, guys. Okay. Now think of our teachers, because my heart goes out to the teachers. I love the teachers. I've had very few teachers I didn't agree with when my kids were going to public school. My kids did go to public school. My kids got vaccinated, not from the COVID vaccine, but when they were babies. And I did do public school. And then COVID hit and I said, what the fuck? Okay. So I have not always been, the prairie, homeschool mom, right, on the ranch, but I am now proudly. But if you look at 11,000 per student, and when my kids were going to public school, and I know it's still happening now, there's 30 to 40 kids per classroom, y'all. I remember my kid throwing up one day and I ran to the school to make sure he was okay. He was totally fine. Kids throw up. But I looked at the teacher and I gave her a hug and I said, how often do you deal with this? This is horrible. There's 40 little ones in this classroom, just boogers and throw up. And she's like, oh yeah, it happens. So one sweet lady, bless her heart, and 40 kids. Okay. Now 40 kids times 11,000 per. And how much are they paying that sweet lady that's teaching them? Nothing. She's getting zero support. She's being told to indoctrinate the kids. So if she's Christian, patriot like us, she's being asked to go against her values and teach them the garbage that they send her. Because again, I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and a lot of them have left the school system because of this. They send them to these, they call them indoctrination camps, right? Yep. But this continued education crap they have to do over the summer, guess what they're teaching them there? This bullshit that's going on with the trans stuff. They're saying that this is what you should be teaching in your classroom. You think that all of them just, over one summer they went home and started watching The View and decided that they were LGBTQ curious or some shit? No, this has been part of the agenda. And they do this with their continued education. They force these teachers to, there was one teacher that reached out to us for legal help because she had stickers on the back of her car that implied that she might be conservative and that she might be Christian. And the school hated it and told her to take them down. And she got attacked for that. But you can have LGBTQ stuff everywhere. Okay. So you've got, how much are they paying our teachers? And they're spending $11,000 per kid. Where's the money going? If it's going to an administration that's Marxist communist bullshit, then no, my kid's not going to go to your public school. And until they pull their heads out of the house, and Joe Lombardo, if you could, actually be the education governor, that'd be great. Vouchers, school vouchers. What's so scary about school vouchers that are just no strings attached?
There goes their whole.
Well,
they can't do it.
It goes back to the money. It goes back to the money. And the thing is too with these teachers, because there are amazing teachers out there that don't actually care about the paycheck. They really genuinely love being around these kids and actually teaching them how to be productive people in society. But it's part of the plan. The government knows that the majority of adults with kids right now, the way that they look at the public education system, this is free childcare to them. They're getting their education and childcare all in one swoop, and it's free. They can't afford anything else if there is no other system in place. If there is no school voucher system in place, right? So they know. So once you start removing all of these teachers that are actually teaching these kids who have Christian beliefs, who have a moral compass, who understand that kids need math, English, and science, not gender ideology and CRT, they're going to leave because they're not going to accept it. And then you're left with these communists who are pushing gender ideology. And then you have all these kids exactly where they want, confused and lost and broken and following whatever it is you're telling them. They have the most malleable minds. Like those ages, especially up to the age of 7, is the point where their brain is developing the fastest. It's the most important time for a kid to learn what they need to learn and start building those critical thinking skills, because everything that happens in those ages is going to determine the rest of their life.
Yep.
Once you have those kids at that age being indoctrinated, I'm not saying that they're lost forever, but they know exactly what they're doing. They understand the psychology of how
Yep.
they're damaging those kids for life by getting them at that age.
Preach, sister, preach. I mean, I was going to say you said 7, but anything under 10 too. We really need to be looking at anything under 10 is a big thing. And yeah, they want you to think that daddy government, big brother is going to take care of your kids. And like you said, they want you to be cool with the whole babysitting. So they've made it to where both parents have to work. We're all suffering from the economy, right? We're all drowning. So both parents are out there working. And then, it wasn't that long ago, I think it was maybe the last election cycle, that Kamala Harris was coming out and saying, and I brought this up a couple times on the show because it's profoundly disgusting to me that people wouldn't just strangle her and put her like 6 feet under Gitmo for saying the stupid shit that comes out of her mouth. But she was walking around going, I really think we need to extend the hours of the public education system because you poor parents, you have to work so much that we should take care of your kids longer. So I really think that the public school system should be extended by a couple hours. And I'm sitting there going, a couple hours? Like, how long are these kids? You've got before school education problems or programs. You've got after school programs. You've got the Boys and Girls Clubs and all this stuff. How much time do American parents get to spend with their children? How much time do American parents actually raise their children? Let's be real about this. After
it
work
wasn't
and
even
school, how much time do you get with your kids?
And it wasn't
Mandy.
even the hours. They were discussing having kids starting their education earlier, like at 3, 4 years old instead of 5, because they needed extra years to get all of their
Honey.
education.
But
And it's
in
like,
New
listen,
York, she was
honey.
talking about extending the hours too. She was
Yeah.
like, we should make it to 5 or 6. What the hell?
The
They
thing is,
literally
if
want to
you
take your
can't
kids from you.
if you can't educate someone in a certain amount of time and you need more time to teach them, you're clearly not efficient and you're not a good teacher. Because if it takes you that long to teach a simple subject, you shouldn't be teaching. You're in the wrong industry. Because if you can explain any concept in a simple way to these kids, it shouldn't be taking you this many hours. You shouldn't need double the hours to teach these kids the same things that we have all learned.
They don't teach them in that time. You know what they
They
do?
don't. They're teaching
Again,
you
I've
how to
talked about
fly
this.
pride flags.
They like spend like 6 hours teaching the kids how to line up and put their stuff in a cubby, and then they go sit down, and then they go eat, and then they go outside. I mean, literally, when I sat and spent time with my kids before we got them out of public school systems, and we were concerned long before COVID about what was actually happening in their classrooms. And I sat there and I said, if I were to clock the amount of time that they're doing real learning, real lessons, it was less than 4 hours a day. And then how long is your kid in a classroom? And Mandy, I want you to talk about homeschooling is not starting at 8 a.m. and finishing at 4 p.m. Okay. It's not even starting at 10 and finishing at 4. Like you can do homeschooling if you're focused and you're paying attention and you and your kid are having, real learning happening. You can do it depending on their age in like under 2 hours when homeschooling's done right. So homeschooling and public education, you can't even compare when it comes to the time. The bullshit that goes on in the public school system is astounding. So Mandy, you've been homeschooling for how long?
I've homeschooled my son his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned before, and this is not, I'm not speaking from ego at all. They tested my son at 5 and he was smarter than most 15-year-olds in the public school system. Like, they are purposely, in my opinion, keeping these kids from their full potential. It is deliberate. In my opinion, the entire public school system is trash. It should be thrown out. It's not designed to be in the best interest of the children. Brooke, you don't have to put Adam in there until he's 7 if you don't want to.
So I don't, you're right. But remember, the only other part of my equation that sucks is the whole 50-50. And so my ex and I had some emails going back and forth, and I made a list. I said, because he wrote me and said that he didn't get into the lottery that we both wanted, which is interesting because it has the lowest enrollment rates. I wonder if it has anything to do with anything else. Anyways, not conspiracy at all. But I made a list and I said faith-based, Montessori, private school, homeschool, my mom has actually, she wanted to homeschool Adam. And I even said, or you and I could homeschool on your week. You know, you take Grant, you take him to his high school, and then you homeschool Adam. And then on my week, I homeschool him, and we just rotate. And then next year we could try to get back into that one that we both are in agreement of. But I can't like make the decision on my own independently, unfortunately, because of having the legal binding divorce decree. However, he is aware that I'm not happy with what's been going on. And when we did talk about the one school that we didn't get the lottery in, that if anything if anything happens up there, I will be removing him, and there won't be anything that he can do about that. So it's I'm just pray for me, pray for me, pray for me. I think the best situation possibly could be, and I also put on there charter schools. There are some charter schools that are K through 12 too, that we're already driving our oldest. He and I are both driving him. So what does it matter if we take our youngest to a school of choice that we drive him to? I don't care. That's fine. Or we homeschool him for a year until we get what we want, and we do it off each other.
And homeschooling at the younger levels too. I mean, again, go through the, if you basic Google searches, you'll find the time for each grade level. And even when you're in college, I mean, again, I think about when I was in college, there's only like so much time your brain can sit and study. And when they're little, they can't process long stretches of long studying. There's so much you can do. I almost am more encouraged to homeschool again at the younger level than as they get older, because, you know, as a parent, you sometimes are like, okay, well, like I was an English geek. I was a writer. I studied Brit Lit. Okay. So like when my kids are coming at me with science, like high school science and high school math, I'm like, okay, well, this one's getting a little bit on me. But when it comes to like the kindergarten and the lower levels, it's so rewarding. It's so wonderful to be able to sit and teach your kids. This is also time you'll never get back. And I know Mandy can talk about the time that I've spent homeschooling my kids, because I just started a new program this year. It just profoundly has impacted our relationship on such a positive level. Like your kids grow up like that, right? Yeah. So I can't imagine if they were this whole time during COVID and everything in the public school system, how little a time I'd get with them.
Yep.
If you can't make time in your life to sit down with your kids like 2 hours a day and look them eye to eye and talk to them about things and do a little bit of education with them, you're going to regret that. You're going to regret that later in life. And I know a lot of us don't have the ability to homeschool, but you should at least put that time in for your kids, period, to really spend quality time with them and go over their schooling and care about it and get to know what's going on in their life. And there's just too many parents and too many families that don't do that anymore, because again, the government's like, we got it. Don't worry about it. Don't even look at what's going on in the schools.
But at some point, the parents have to take accountability too. I've seen studies that show parents of public school children get 15 minutes or less of quality time with their children every day. That's a problem. And if we're being honest, yes, everybody's working, everybody's tired. But what happens is, in my opinion, we see parents dissociate a lot. They scroll on their phones for hours. They're not paying attention to their children. They're off doing whatever. There needs to be some accountability in that situation. And the administrators are paid too much. The money is not going to the students. It's not going to the supplies. It's being pushed down onto the parents. The parents are having to supply 30 boxes of tissues. Just, if you've seen the supply list that these kids come home with, like,
well, and again,
there's other children, because there are other parents in there who refuse to supply or can't supply, and the school district isn't going to supply it. I don't know about y'all, but
for $11,000 a year, they can't give these freaking teachers some damn
millions of dollars a year.
Like, come on, like.
But it's not even tissues. I remember when I was in school that we didn't even have enough textbooks for everyone to be able to take one home. And the kids that I teach in my church right now have told me the same thing. Oh, well, there are certain classes we're lucky enough to not have extra homework from, because we don't have enough books for everyone to have their own book. You're telling me right now, on average, it's $11,000 and kids don't get a textbook? Like, listen, I understand that books are expensive. I went to college. I had to take out a loan just for one book, right? Like, that's the level that we're at. But it's like, how much Bitcoin do you have? I have 2 books worth of Bitcoin. Okay. So So if you look at all of these things, it's like, where is this money going to? It always falls back on follow the money. Where is the money going? If you need more hours to teach these kids, why are they unable to learn in less amount of time? Where is the money going that you can't do this in an efficient manner? And you said something else, Andrea, actually, that I wanted to bring up too, because it's a combination of things. The longer your kids are in school, the more trash food they're going to be eating while they're away. The
Mhm.
more trash they're going to be listening to, right, from all around them, from the different teachers, all the different ideologies. So now they have a lack of sleep because they're spending more hours in the school. They're not getting proper sleep because they're getting too many hours of homework on top of the wasted hours at school. So they don't have proper sleep. They don't have proper nutrition. They're being fed pounds of sugar at these schools. And so now they're all hyped up. They're cracked out on sugar. They can't sit still during class. So
Yep.
now the teachers say, oh, your kid's got ADHD. I'm so sorry. We're going to have to throw them on this pill and this pill so they can pay attention, because they can't seem to sit down and function in an 8-hour span to this boring ass lecture. Haven't, like, how could this kid possibly not be able to pay attention, right? So now you've got your kids hopped up on sugar, hopped up on some sort of, ADHD medication. Now they're trying to learn all of this material that is useless information to them, that is literally going to do nothing for them. It's the most boring information possible, because it's not required of them to need ever in life. And you're not teaching them critical skills. You're not teaching them the importance and understanding of why you should be learning, why you should be curious about learning, what subjects you should be looking into, because obviously everyone wants to study something different. We're not robots, but they're not instilling any of these values. They're just creating little robot slaves that line up in their desks, they show up on time, they leave when the bell rings. They're just creating a workforce with zero unique personality, zero unique talents, zero unique, critical thinking skills. They're just creating robots and saying, this is your education. They're just creating robots, and
And
they're
they're
funding it, and it's
pharmaceutically. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, and I was going to say, it again, it all comes down to this money system. But you're not creating individuals that are going to progress society. They don't want individuals who are actually going to progress and grow and create something new,
And
because
that's what
that is a
Rockefeller
threat to
said.
them.
Yeah, that's what Rockefeller said. He wants
Mhm.
us stupid and sick, man.
Don't
And
forget
they're
they're severing-
pharmaceutically lobotomizing any
Mhm.
child that doesn't conform
Yep.
is what they're doing. You pump them full of Pop-Tarts in the morning, and you send them off
Mhm.
to school, and you try to make, especially little boys, you try to make them sit still. And if you don't conform, if you're creative, if you move, if that's not the environment that you're supposed to be in, because children are not supposed to be in that environment, then they go, oh, there's something wrong with you. You're not
Mhm.
conforming. Here, take these meds, take these
Mhm.
meds. They don't want creativity. They don't
Yep.
want outside thinkers. They want you to conform.
And
Period.
we've seen
also
it. I
wanna
mean,
separate the parent relationship from the
Mhm.
child too. That's the
Right.
big push right now,
Mhm.
is they, what was it that the Biden administration said last year? Wasn't it we should be trusted more than parents with their own children? I believe there was some kind of comment that he
yeah,
had made
we know
about,
what's better for your kids than
yes,
you do.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
Oh, we know
They're
what's better for
they're
your own.
our children,
They're our
not
children.
your
No, actually,
children.
they're ours. We gave
Yeah.
birth to
Yeah.
them. My
This is
boyfriend,
why I have guns and ammo. Like,
right?
I
Like, no,
swear.
thank you. And then now, the latest thing that passed last year that will be implemented this year for share is fourth and fifth graders. It's not a woman with a vulva or a boy with a penis. It's a body with a vulva and a body with a penis. And the parents, they switched Nevada legislation. You used to have to opt in. Now you're already opted in. Now you have to opt out. So if you don't opt out and you miss the paperwork,
Then your kids are,
Can
getting
I
that bullshit.
address Naruto in the comments real quick? Said
Yes.
there is no money in the budget.
Yes,
Who will pay
thank you.
for it? If you don't raise taxes, then you scream about that. Naruto, there's plenty of money in the budget. It is
Our
being
budget is big.
misused. It
Yes.
is
Mhm.
going to places and people who are not doing their job, who are
Mhm.
overpaid, and it's not going to the children.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I mean, Tom tells a story about in his kid's school, there was a young boy that he actually witnessed them put him on the ADD medication, and like he saw this huge shift. And then, and again, it's sad when he tells the story, you know, how different that kid was after the medication. And then with my kids, my family, we went through a journey of realizing how bad sugar was, and we got it out, and we all turned into carnivores. And even when my kids were little babies, I would, instead of giving them cereal, they don't have juice or soda ever, but instead of giving them cereal, I would make fun things like bacon, like just pounds and pounds of bacon, or even shrimp. Like sometimes I made like garlic shrimp, because you know how easy it is to just like grill up some shrimp. And so I had so many friends like, what? Like that's what they have for breakfast. And then the more we did carnivore, the less they needed breakfast, because the more you're on a high fat, low sugar diet, you actually don't wake up hungry. And I tell friends, my kids are really not hungry until 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And Frankie's seen it. You will go on road trips with my kids. They're like, oh yeah, I don't know, let's eat lunch at 2. And yeah, they might scarf down some burgers at that point, but they're really never starving. And my kids never need a big breakfast. That was another lie that the pyramid, you know, calendar showed us. And, you know, the breakfast that they told us, what, like, I think this started like as far back as the 50s with our parents, but it was like
the most
a
important
glass
meal.
of orange juice and oatmeal and, you know, all this stuff that's just sugar, 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 and all the cereal. I mean, look at how much we set aside in our stores for cereal. And I think that was a big red pill for me too, as I went through, my husband and I were going through our health journey, getting into carnivore, and, you know, it was paleo to keto to carnivore. And then we were seeing it in our kids. And then when you see the sugar that they get at the school system, like what Frankie's talking about, it is astronomical. At every turn, they're getting cupcakes and sugar and sugar and sugar. Everything's carbohydrates, you know, all the vending machine, like everything is sugar. And I mean, if you don't think that that's part of what's going on as far as the poisoning of our kids and why we're having these issues with the ADD and the ADHD, like, again, think of being a kid. If you woke up and your mom gave you 5 Snicker bars and then sent your ass to school, how good would you do that day? Like, that's what's happening.
Which is another thing that clearly the funding is not going to, right? If you go to any public school, they don't get free breakfast. They don't get free lunch. You're paying for it. I remember when I was in school, you had to pay for it, and the options were Subway and Pizza Hut, and it was overpriced because you were getting it at school. I would pack my own food because I didn't want to eat that. I noticed at a young age what that did to me. And that's why I did better in school, because I brought real food. But other kids didn't have that option. They were stuck with Pizza Hut and Subway. So it's like, we're paying all this money in our taxes for this funding, but we're not getting free school. Or I'm sorry, free food. And it's something that my mom talks about a lot, because she grew up in Puerto Rico. I grew up in Las Vegas. So that's the education system that I know. But in Puerto Rico, the taxes are set up a little bit different, but they have they get free breakfast, they get free lunch. And we're not talking they buy Pizza Hut or Subway and they just give it out to the kids. They have the school lunch ladies. They're cooking rice, beans, chicken, you know, meat. They're getting plantains. They're getting salads.
Again,
they're getting real food.
$11,000 per kid, though. And someone just brought up the teachers. I brought up that I want the teachers to get more. The teachers should be getting way more. How much is your teacher getting paid? There's 40 kids in her classroom, and you're getting 11,000. Do the math.
They're getting
11,000 per kid, and there's 40 kids in the classroom. How much goes to the teacher?
I think the increase in Washoe County was they got like an 8 or 10% increase. So they were getting like 40.
So they're still below minimum wage, basically.
Yeah, so they're getting 40,000. Now it's up.
Who can live off of $40,000? Who can?
Which is insane. Which is insane. But
school system and go co-op and private. You could get a group of your parents. Like you, Brooke, you could get a group of your friends all chip in and pay, you know, $500 to $1,000 a month or whatever, you know, make your own little homeschool co-op class and leave that system. Because I tell you right now, people in the public school system, they're not getting much time with their kids, which means the government is molding your children. You have very little influence on your children. So your children are going to be the product of whatever the government decides.
So in the future, I have a guest that we can bring on, and she has started her own co-op, and what she is actively seeking is funding. Right now, she's doing it out of her house, which she would like to not do. She would like if a business developer or someone had a space that they could write off, they could write it off, right? Everybody's going to get a benefit. They're going to write that off. They donate the space. You've got parents like me and other parents who have our children there, and they're becoming actual contributors to society versus, hey, mom, social emotional learning, CRT. And oh yeah, my math teacher hung a lesbian flag in class today, because every middle schooler needs to know who their math teacher takes to bed,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
she wanted to make everybody.
But there's a lot more. There's a lot more of that going on, which is great.
Oh, ton.
So again, you guys mentioned the statistics earlier. How many people? What, like, I know nationally, because I know Candace Owens has been speaking about this, because she's been on that kick too after having her babies. But nationally, people are ripping their kids out. Thank God. I mean, really, this is what our country. Oh, I just realized it says that I'm not Ben Miller. I'm not Ben Miller, but that's okay. Anyway, this is what our country's been founded on. We were homeschool parents, and we were faith-based teaching. And then we started teaching our kids in, as far as publicly, outside of our homes, in churches. And I love seeing us going back to that. And like you said, creating these groups where we can help with parents who work and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, statistically, how many?
55,000, April 19th, 2024.
For here in Nevada?
They're making, so I know it was around like 42 or 45. So I know that they did a huge hike. I mean, there's one thing that the board did right. I'll give them one little thing. And that was that these teachers, and there are really good educators too, right? I don't want to not validate that we do have some really good educators that are out there to teach children, but they did bump it up. $55,158 is what they're getting. And then, of course, you've got your benefits and your PERS and other things like that. So, yeah, I mean, 55,000. I was making that when I was like in college.
Well, there's a reason why everyone in our state is cocktail waitressing and bartending and waiting tables and doing that while their kids are going to school. Because again,
They
a
make
lot of
more
people
money.
can't. But again, you've got 40 kids, and they're collecting $11,000. So how much is each classroom making? I mean, think about that.
That's $400,000
Yes.
if you just average it at 10,000.
$400,000, and they're giving the teacher 50, 55. That's their big raise.
To go back,
they went from like 42 to 55, so it was like an 8 to 10% increase or something.
Yeah, to go back to Naruto, what Naruto was saying in the comments, that these teachers want to earn, that they feel that they're not earning that much. Look at how much each classroom is getting. If you have 40 kids on average, and it's over 10,000, but it just to use it as
they're
a
not getting
simple
the
number,
food either.
that's
We're paying for the food and the
$400,000.
supplies.
They're not getting free food, right? That's precisely what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Where is this money going? We're not saying take away money from the teachers. We're not saying defund the education system. We're saying, where is this money going, and why is it going there? Because it's clearly not going to the students. It's not going to their education. It's not going to their best interest. And it's obviously not going to these teachers. But another point too, I want to say, I know that these teachers aren't making $200,000, which I think some teachers should be, because if you're teaching kids how to read and write and do math, you should be paid a lot more than some NBA player that all he's doing is just shooting some hoops, right? If you look at the teachers that we have now, the majority
we don't respect
of the
our teachers. We don't
the
respect
majority
them,
of the
and then
teachers-
that's why we get shit teachers.
But that's also the thing too. If you look at what we're seeing in the system, how is the education system vetting the people that are becoming teachers?
Exactly.
They're not.
Who's
It's
getting
really
certified?
like a dumpster fire.
It's
a dumpster fire.
literally
from
a
our
dumpster
universities.
fire of individuals who are
Our
coming
universities
in
are crap.
with their communist socialist
Mhm.
agendas.
Preach
They
it.
don't want to teach anything. So why would we be paying someone? I mean, you wouldn't pay someone who's flipping burgers at Burger King $100,000 salary because they
In
want to earn
California,
more.
you do. Well,
Not
frankly,
actually, no, because now it's AI. AI is handling
I have
it.
an
So
opinion on why we see football players and basketball players getting paid millions of dollars. That quote, "Give them bread and circus and they'll never
bread and
revolt."
circuses.
Okay, bread and circuses. Okay, they're not going to invest the money on good teachers. And the teachers, the good people, a lot of them are getting weeded out because they can see that the system is crap by design, and that so they're leaving. They don't want to be any part of what's happening. So they're getting some, not all. There's some. My niece is a teacher and she's amazing, but I see what she goes through. She has no funding for her classroom. Every year we raise money to send supplies and buy glue sticks and stuff that the school should be doing. But football players, Travis Kelsey and them are getting millions of dollars. It's because they're a distraction. They're
Exactly.
distracting you while they move in on your children and put the worst people that
And
they
then-
can find in charge of your children for 8 to 10 hours a day
Mhm.
while you're trying to
Well,
figure
well,
out
you
how to
get,
work
what did you say, Mandy? 15 minutes?
15 minutes.
Yeah. Well,
You
you're
get
getting your
15 minutes
15
of
minutes a
influence
day
for
with your
children.
kids. You're letting these indoctrinated, Marxist, atheist,
They're
mentally
working
deranged
against you all the
people
time to
spend
ruin
more
your
time with your
relationship.
kids.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, we're at the 50-minute mark, so let's do wrap it up as far as what are your parting words as far as advice to parents. I want to be uplifting as far as like I think there is a lot of us out there that's fighting at the fact that people are pulling their kids out of the public school and trying to find other options. I keep saying it doesn't have to be homeschool. I know a lot of people can't do that. We have to have a free market. That's why I talk about the voucher system, but I'll let you guys say what you want to say to wrap up this week before we part. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Oh, no. Okay. First of all, 5 o'clock. This was awesome. Love it. Next time we need to have like a little wine sippy cup.
Happy hour.
I feel like I really understand both sides of the spectrum because I'm in one of those weird dynamics having 50-50 custody with an ex. And so that makes my situation really, I think, understanding to the people that can't just pull their kids out because I'm part of what I can't just do because of court and having a divorce decree. But I don't feel like all hope is lost. I mean, I feel like I got called to action last year after just things were like imploding left and right. And I'm trying the best that I can to navigate and co-parent the best that I can for my little guy for his youngest. Yes, I will put on a movie. Let mommy finish talking because he's super excited to hang out with mom tonight, which I value my time with my kids. So if that means I get to possibly maybe homeschool him 1 week on, 1 week off next year, and my ex does the other week, and my oldest is in high school, I'll be really happy with that because you don't get the time back. And don't be discouraged if you're one of those parents that absolutely cannot pull your kids out. There's other things that you could be looking at as charter schools, faith-based schools. We are looking at different things such as there's co-ops that are coming, all kinds of just really, really cool stuff. So don't give up. Keep following us. Help support where you can. Mine is Our Parental Rights. And this Thursday, if you're in Reno, Nevada, and you want to hear some of these amazing candidates that we have that we want to get them elected into our school boards, the school board seats matter. So make sure you pay attention to who's running. Make sure you put your vote in. It's really important. And I'm giving 2 more presentations here in the next month before our primary in June on who to vote for and why you should vote for them and who needs to go. Like Trump says, you're fired. So there you go.
And is it myparentalrights.org?
It's OUR Parental Rights. And
Our
fun
Parental
fact,
Rights.org.
I made it Our Parental Rights, making fun of the whole pronoun usage because R is a pronoun. But guess what? There are children. Mandy, your son belongs to you. My boys belong to me. Andrea, your boys belong to you. There are our children. So I did that on purpose.
Ourparentalrights.org. Brooke does amazing work, and she has some badass shirts there too. There's only one gender shirts, y'all. Have your kids go to school wearing those things.
Heck yeah.
All right, Frankie, what's your sweet parting words for the audience this evening?
Sweet parting words. You're right.
Yeah.
It is always a little bittersweet.
Right.
First, I do want to say thank you to everybody in all of the chats because I was trying to keep up with everything and I didn't get a chance to respond to everyone. So thank you for everyone and all the comments and questions that you threw in. But I just want to say, remember that there's always a solution. I know that we're living in a dumpster fire for the education system right now, but there are always solutions. There's always ways out of everything. There's always a choice. That's the thing about how society is built right now. It's this illusion of choice and lack of illusion of choice in certain circumstances. And there are actual options. Like Brooke was saying, you can look into charter schools, you can look into other schools. There are so many options for schools in multiple locations, and the fact that you just don't know what's available to you because you haven't been given access to that information, and it's been set up that way on purpose. It's not a bug, it's a feature that you don't know what these options are. They want your kids to be as little educated as possible, right? They want to make sure that your kids are hopped up on sugar because they're creating lifelong patients when they get diabetes into your kids at younger and younger ages. You as a parent have to realize that everything ends with you. You have to go out and look for the solutions. You have to find what's going to be best for your kids because the options are out there. They are out there. The money is out there. There's grants you can get technically for your kids. There's so many solutions. You can work with other parents. There are so many organizations that do online tutoring. I mean, you can get all of your neighborhood kids together. All the parents can work together. Hey, on this day, I'll have all the kids and I'll keep an eye on them. The next day, another parent keeps an eye on all the kids. There's so many different options that you can create. You just have to look at your situation and say, what's going to work best for me and how do I make this happen? Because
Yep.
there's always a choice. There's always a choice. And it's up to you. It's up to you. Mandy, give
Shout
it
out
to
to
us.
Billy.
Okay.
Shout out to Billy always.
I know, sorry. Shout out Billy, Mandy, the
Shout
baton.
out,
Look at
Billy.
Mandy. I need
Okay,
to pass.
so we all know that I am the friend that will tell you the truth. I am the friend that will not blow fluff up your bum. I will tell you if you're dating a loser or if a shirt makes you look chubby. So I'm just going to be honest, lovingly as possible. This is based on conversations that I've heard parents say, like, oh, I could never have my kids all day. I can't wait for them to go back to school. They make comments that kind of indicate that there's no way they could spend all day with their children. I think when it comes to the school system, you're going to get out of it exactly what you're putting into it. If you have a mindset of I can't do it because I can't make a change because, then you're right, you can't. But if you're looking for solutions, then you're going to be able to change it. Homeschooling does not mean school at home necessarily. Remove the idea from your mind that homeschool looks like school at a brick and mortar institution. It doesn't. It's completely different. So if you're looking for solutions, you'll find them. If you're looking for excuses, then don't be surprised or upset at the product that you get with your children because you chose to make excuses, not make changes.
Ooh.
One last thing actually that you just reminded me. If you are considering or just borderline trying to decide if homeschooling is right for your kids, if you look at the studies comparing kids in public school and homeschooling, kids who were homeschooled in whichever program that was outperformed in every single metric every child in public school.
Yep.
So keep that in mind.
Love
And
it.
I say that with love. I don't lie to you because I love you and I'm not a liar. So I'm not
Hey.
trying to be mean.
The truth is the truth. Yep. Billy says, well said, Mandy. Billy, your comment earlier didn't come through. Sometimes Twitter does that to us. So I just want to say Billy Hurt's on our feed and he's a great leader here in Nevada. You can reach out to him at billyhurtpatriot@gmail.com as well. There's a lot of great patriots out there where the whole point of this show is giving everyone inspiration to know that you're not alone.
Yep.
Getting our communities together. We are for Mama Bear, Patriot, MAGA fighters, right? And there's not enough women out there. I always say that our show right here, that's what she said. We're fighting against The View and all the nonsense out there. There's a lot of women like us that don't get a platform, that don't get a voice. And if you are like us and you want to get involved, you can reach out to us at media@tomrenz.com. I put all of our links up there for Brooke at ourparentalrights.org. Mandy does a lot of work with with Joey Gilbert, and he has a great show, Gloves Off. Check it out here on Rumble, Gloves Off with Joey Gilbert. And you can follow all of her work also with his Substack at joeygilbert.substack.com. We have our own section on Tom Renz's Substack where we publish a show, and we'll start putting more of our commentary attached to that too. We're just very busy, y'all. But
Yep.
that's tomrenz.substack.com.
Sleep, y'all.
We don't sleep, y'all.
We don't
And
sleep.
then we've got Vim
Sleep is for the
Miller.
weak.
Yeah, Vim Miller is a good friend, another amazing patriot. Thank you, Vim Miller, for letting us use your channels to distribute our show. Please support America Happens, americahappens.com. Vim is doing great stuff in DC, and every penny you give Vim, I promise you, it doesn't go to him just getting like, ramen and coffee in the middle of the night, although he needs that. Buy Vim ramen and coffee to keep him awake. He actually spends every penny. I'm a good friend of him. I mean, everyone at America Happens, their blood, sweat, and tears goes into sharing the truth. So support Tom Renz at tomrenz.com. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We will hopefully be back at Thursday, I think, next week. But Mandy will be traveling. We'll have some guest hosts next week.
I may or may not be in the hospital, but
Yes, Brooke, I was going to say prayers.
I plan on fully being. If I'm in the hospital, y'all know
Brooke
I
will
might
still be here.
I might check in for 10 minutes. I will totally take the call just to show everybody how tough I am.
Brooke will be sitting in that hospital bed with her biggest crown.
Oh, she'll be on. She'll be
absolutely.
on.
Absolutely.
She'll be.
I will be at the beach.
Yeah, Mandy's taking 2 weeks off. Y'all, you ain't gonna see her. So Mandy, we want you to come back all sunburnt.
Yes.
Girl, I'm the color of uncooked chicken.
I know. That's why I hope
from naked chicken to lobster. I have no.
I want to see you be lobster, girl.
No, yeah.
Oh my
God. Calls it Wonder Bread. I want you coming back all red and shit. Yeah,
girlfriend. I come back like a lizard lady, just peeling pieces of my face off.
Listen, just eat lots of meat and don't put on sunscreen and just do a little bit of sun a day and build it up. You can't just go out for 12 hours.
That's mine and Frankie's
I'm gonna come back with margaritas in my veins.
Start taking walks outside now to get used to the sun, and then you're good.
And
then don't use sunscreen.
Start hydrating now.
Yes.
All right, we love you guys. We'll be back with episode 12 next week. Sometime, somehow. Please pray for Brooke, and try ripping your kids out of public school, right?
Yes.
All any of us will help you get it all dialed in. Don't worry.
Reach out to us. We love you. We'll fight the machine together. God bless you all, and let's say it, ladies. Bye.
Bye.